I avoid things that can destroy my life.
Welcome to Decoding TV's coverage of Euphoria Season 3, Episode 2. Name of the episode is America, My Dream. I'm David Chen here with Patrick Klepek. And as we do every week on Decoding TV, we're going to be covering, recapping, reviewing, discussing the latest episode of Euphoria. We're going to be spoiling everything that happened. Quick thoughts on the episode. Patrick Klepek, any overall thoughts?
I wish this entire show was about this new storyline with Rue. Is sort of how I feel so far. I'm not that convinced by the storylines for many of the surrounding characters in the Euphoria cast. Obviously, Zendaya and her characterization of Rue is the heart of Euphoria season 1 and 2, but there was a lot going on around her in those first two seasons, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. It feels very much for worse at the moment. Like this is very much a situation where anytime we are not back with Rue, I want the show to get back with Rue. I think the cast of side characters in her arc are the most interesting, and I don't know where her character is going in the show, especially relative to the arc of a drug addict in seasons 1 and 2, but I want to see what happens there, and I am just so painfully less interested in what kind of everybody else is up to. So that's where I'm at, a couple episodes into the season. Like, granted, it's still pretty early. There's more time to sort of flesh out what's happening with Jules and Lexi and Nate and Cassie, etc. But I'm not buying what they're selling quite yet, except when it comes to Rue. But where did you fall, 2 episodes in?
Kind of the same. I think I'm curious. Like, the one area where it feels like this show might have something potentially interesting to say is around show business, because obviously Sam Levinson is heavily involved in show business. So, like, I'm curious what specifically with Maddie's storyline, who is working in Hollywood, and I'm curious, like, if that's going to go anywhere at all. So far, it's just kind of kicking off. I agree that the Ruse storyline is the strongest at this is the strongest at this point. Although that storyline also has a couple issues, but we're going to talk about it. One thing I did want to address is I did see some comments last week at youtube.com/decodingtv about how we spent a lot of time talking about how this season is probably going to not be good because we don't trust Sam Levinson to handle these themes very well. And I think that's a fair critique of our critique. I think that, and the encouragement is, hey, maybe just evaluate the work that is in front of you. And that's fair. And to that degree, I would say that Euphoria season 3, episode 1 was fairly entertaining. And I think we were upfront about that. I think the thing is, I think you and I, from my observation, enjoyed that episode more than a lot of people did. Enjoyed that episode more than like a lot of the chatter online, a lot of the critics. So I did enjoy the episode. Also, don't have faith that a lot of these plot lines will be paid out. Pay off in a good way. But I think it is fair to say we should try and reserve judgment and just evaluate the work that's in front of us. And if that's true, then what is in front of us in this episode is a fairly transitional episode where we're introduced to a lot of storylines and not that much actually takes place. But let's talk about what does happen. We get a Maddie flashback where we learn how she got her current job, and she meets with a person who's working in Hollywood and takes a lot of initiative by answering her phone in front of her, which I actually think is kind of a cool and badass thing to do. Patrick Klepek, what would happen? What would happen if somebody showed up? If some dude shows up, you're having a sandwich by yourself at your favorite deli, and they show up, and then the phone rings, and they say, "Hello, Patrick Klepek's office." And they just did that, like, bold, like right in front of you. Like, what would you be like impressed with that initiative?
No, I mean that. It's like, did you wash your hands before you touch that?
How dare you touch things that I handle?
No, I find it. There's a very much a I just saw someone put this. I think it was on the Everything app. It's like, this is what boomers think getting a job is for young. Like, kids just gotta go out. Kids just gotta go out and show initiative to get a job these days, and they're just all like online on their phones and just don't know how to just show someone how it's done. That said, it fits the character very well.
Right.
Like
That's totally something you could imagine Maddie doing, right?
where Maddie ends up at the end of season 2, picking up with her some years later. Her personality type 100% maps to a F it, I'm just gonna go do it sort of thing. And so it's not that I don't find it believable, but no, I would not want the roles to be reversed.
Yeah, you personally would not want that. However, like I actually do think in Hollywood that kind of stuff does happen all the time. You know,
Sure.
like it's not necessarily exactly like this, but there are many stories that are true of people. Oh, hey, my cashier at the store had the look that I want for this movie, and you know, Harrison Ford was fixing my cabinets, and he's like, and this is amazing. You know, it's like, and then he becomes one of the biggest stars of all time. You know, this kind of stuff does happen. So like, I don't think it's totally unrealistic, but it's good to know that Patrick Klepek does not like. So all the people out there listening to this, who want to apply for a job with Patrick Klepek, guys, do not touch his phone without permission. Okay. Anyway, she then parlays her encounter into an assistant job. And on the side, she starts trying to be an OnlyFans manager, but her real boss, kills the idea before it goes supernova. And as a result, Maddie loses out on a lot of money. You kind of see Maddie lives in a kind of not super glamorous apartment in the show. And the implication is that she would have been a millionaire if she had just trusted her instincts and managed the people that were up and coming. I think one of the things that to me has been very fascinating, right? In general, as a person living life in our times, is how money just seems like such a weird construct in today's society. And what I mean by that is, if I pressed a few buttons, Patrick, on a computer and bought 30 Bitcoin, you know, like 20 years ago, I would never podcast again because I'd be like, I know.
I almost did. I don't know how much, but like, you know, I lived in San Francisco at the, you know, the groundswell of all this stuff starting where people were, you know, like they were buying Bitcoin to buy drugs and like stuff like that. Like the kind of shit people were doing in there. And like, I had a chance. It was trivial to just buy Bitcoin. It would have been $100 of Bitcoin in, you know, 2010. I wouldn't be here, David. I'd be making the TV. You'd be talking about my TV shows, David.
And it's not, you know, it's not just Bitcoin. It's like Nvidia stock. There's like tons of other things. It's not just one thing. And also you see people on OnlyFans, like the amount of money that this woman showed on the show in Euphoria is not unrealistic, right? Like people on OnlyFans are making tens of thousands of dollars a month, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. Not everyone, not everyone, and not all the time, but it happens. And so if you're growing up, the entire economy is collapsing around you. Meanwhile, people doing things that require seemingly no skill, like pressing a bunch of buttons on the screen or taking naked photos of yourself, are becoming rich beyond your wildest imaginations. Like we are so far beyond the work at the factory 8 hours a day for 20 years and then, you know, buy a house with 2 paychecks. Like we're so far beyond that. Like it's just such a weird environment. And one of the things I do like about the show so far is I do think it captures that hallucinatory energy around what it's like to exist in this economy. You know what I mean? It's just such a bizarre feeling of like, oh, you can sign up on OnlyFans and be a millionaire. That's people probably wouldn't have predicted that necessarily, but it is the reality. And so I'm curious to see where the show's going to take it, but it does give you a little taste of it with this plotline.
Well, it does not appear to be, at least so far, condescending to the idea, like where it actually lands in terms of its moral take on sort of like OnlyFans, like where it, like part of that's going to depend on like where the characters end up, right? Like as they engage in the platform, which obviously makes like Sydney Sweeney's character of Cassie really interesting because there's like this merging of Sydney Sweeney's how she is portrayed in the culture, like as an actor, as a like an object of attraction, like in pop culture, were she not so popular, she is the sort of type that like it wouldn't shock you to see like this extremely attractive blonde woman engage with OnlyFans. Now, like Sydney Sweeney does not need to do that,
Right.
but to have like, and if you read interviews with Sweeney, like she's well aware, like she is aware of how the world looks at her, and sometimes picks projects that go against type. I forget that fighter movie that she did last year that I know kind of, you know, wasn't the greatest, but it was like very against type in terms of how people view her. And then, you know, then
Christy is the name of the movie.
Christy.
She's also in this movie called Reality, where she plays Reality Winner. This is on HBO Max, and that was a very interesting role, very unlike any other roles that she's ever done before, too.
I cannot recommend more highly people check out Immaculate, which is the horror film that she did a couple years ago. That movie is one of the best horror endings I've seen in like the last 10 years. I love the way that movie ends, and I think she's great in it. Very subdued and quiet, like the anti Cassie and a lot of Sweeney stuff. But it's all to say, I don't feel confident in Sam Levinson's ability to sort of land this plane, but I do think Sweeney is uniquely set up as an actor and Cassie as a character to potentially say interesting things about what's happening here. Whether that's what actually ends up happening by the end of the show, I don't know. Remains to be seen.
It's just interesting that she is the character of Cassie, right? In this episode, the character of Cassie reaches out to Maddie. They get together. They meet at a pool. Cassie's regretful that she lost Maddie as a friend when she got together with Nate, and she also complains that she's not a bigger deal on OnlyFans. But Maddie gives her some tips, and maybe that's going to lead to something. What's interesting about this plotline is that in reality, Sydney Sweeney is probably the second most famous person in the cast.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But she's playing somebody who is not famous at all and just kind of clawing for it. And like maybe this represents Sweeney at an earlier phase of her career or something like along those lines. But I think that's an interesting dynamic because, you know, when actors play characters that represent their journey in some way, perhaps. I think it'll be interesting to see what she does with it. So
I think it's also maybe I'm granting the show too much. Maybe this is the show not saying this, but you look at Sydney Sweeney, like, oh, of course she would be popular on OnlyFans. And I think there's a way you could view the show as saying, like, these things, much like getting popular on YouTube or any social media platform, is not as simple as just clicking a button.
Right. It's more arbitrary than that, perhaps.
Sometimes it's as arbitrary as the algorithm picking you and like you going with it. On the other hand, there's also like skills, rules, expectations, like quality, like there's also a discipline. Yeah. There is a skill to engaging with the platforms, and that maybe that's you, and that's maybe at the end of the day that is you just constructing yourself a bigger boat to try and ride the algorithm if it shines on you. But it is not. Sometimes things happen by accident. Sometimes you make your own luck and have the ability to ride that. And so I do think there's a way of looking at how this show uses someone like Sydney Sweeney. It's like it's not as easy as just like actually these people on these platforms are working hard to serve an audience. You may not like find it appealing. You may not even respect it, but like there's a hustle. Like there is work involved that these people are doing. And it's not as simple as like you're hot and then you're popular on OnlyFans. Like there is another component to doing the job of being, operating, working on those platforms.
If you want to watch a show that is airing right now that also engages with the mechanics of OnlyFans, I think in so far in a much deeper way than Euphoria, I would check out Margot's Got Money Troubles, which I discussed in the main podcast of Decoding TV. Get it wherever your podcasts are found. All right. What else happens in this episode? Cal shows up at Nate's house. We learn that he is socially ostracized and narrowly avoided prison. Later at a party, Nate tries to get an investor to make up for some of the debts. We learn that Nate owes around $550,000. And he's trying to convince people to invest in his Sun Settlers thing, but it doesn't go well when people find out that his fiance is into OnlyFans. And basically, Patrick Klepek, if you want to convince people that you are incredibly wealthy, if you like that you have Noah Weil money, then do not have your wife on OnlyFans because that will be a sign that you are not insanely wealthy. That is generally, not always, but it is generally a tip-off. And that is, in fact, what happens here. And there's this big, uncomfortable confrontation where he promises Cassie the flowers that she wants at her wedding if she'll delete her OnlyFans account. She appears to agree, but who knows what is actually going to happen there. Let's get to Rue's storyline, which we've both agreed is the most interesting. Alamo Brown recruits Rue to clean up Tish's dead body and to work at a strip club called the Silver Slipper. After conversing with Lori, Alamo Brown claims Rue for himself, essentially absolving Rue's debt because Alamo blames Lori on for the death of Tish and losing one of his girls. That said, during the conversation, he's upset that Lori calls him a pig and sends her an actual pig to her house as revenge, which I have to say is pretty cool. Anyway, we learned that the drugs were accidentally laced with fentanyl by Faye, and that you only need a few grams of fentanyl on the scale to poison someone, and that is what caused Tish's death. I love that the show is doing public service announcements. You know, like do not leave accidental fentanyl grains on your scale, or else some bad thing's going to happen. Just good safety tips out there.
Write that one down. You know,
write that one down, please.
Reference it in the notes app if you forget.
Rue's job at the Silver Slipper is to pass out drugs to clients under the supervision of a guy named Big Eddie. She takes a liking to an employee named Angel, who becomes fixated on what happened to Tish. Rue eventually tells Angel the truth, and she begins to spiral, and Rue is tasked with taking Angel to rehab. Now, there is one big reveal in this episode, Patrick Klepek, which is that Rue essentially relapsed, and they've decided that they're basically not going to deal with that storyline anymore, as far as I can tell. And I think this is, on the one hand, I understand that Sam Levinson wants to tell a specific story this season about drugs and sex work and the American West and all this stuff. And having Rue be like, actually, guys, I'm sober and I'm not taking any drugs and I can't be around drugs and alcohol, doesn't allow him to tell that story really effectively, perhaps. But I did find the way that this dealt with the Rue relapse to be kind of poor. Like, you see a flashback and then you see Zendaya leaving a message on her mom, and it's like, oh man, we're doing this again. And then she then basically says, and then I relapsed, and I just I never got my shit together after that. And that was it. And that's it. And it's like, oh, okay. So the entire thing we dedicated like 1.5 seasons of Euphoria to, we're just, okay, no one really cares anymore, because we need Rue to be able to do drugs for this season to work. Patrick Klepek, your reaction to this?
Well, she's California sober, David. I'm pretty sure it's explained in the show.
Is that a thing? California sober?
Yes. Yeah, it is. Yeah, no, that is a term that typically like is a shorthand way of describing like, right, I smoke weed and I drink alcohol. I don't do anything hard in that. So no, I've heard that term before.
Okay.
So no, you don't get to credit that to Sam Levinson. Like that existed before.
Yes.
It's like I was actually cackling during the flashback.
Flashback, right?
Because it's like doing a magic trick. It's like, all right, we got to do some bullshit. We're going to hand it to like one of the actors of a generation who can just take it's sometimes when you watch like, you know, at the height of like Marvel stuff, it's like, we got to do some exposition. We're going to give the most gobbledygook nonsense to one of the greatest actors alive. And at the end, you're going to be like, holy shit. Yeah, we got to take care of like Goop Blocks 9. Like, I agree. Like, it's very important. And there's a different version of that happening here, which is if you were to snippet out that phone call, and just like, hey, just like watch this clip of like Zendaya acting. It's tremendous. Like,
yes, great.
That phone call is heart-wrenching. Like, it is brutal. I mean, it's even framed beautifully, like the way the lights go out in the background at the gas station.
Yeah.
It's like Euphoria, like at its best.
I mean, I will say I liked that speech the first 6 times I saw it in seasons 1 and 2 of the show.
Of course. And I just watched that stuff.
That's me though, but yeah, go ahead.
You're not wrong. But like there is a way that like she is so good that you can be transfixed by
it's true.
The weight that she can give to these words. But it's exactly that's what a magic trick is though. Like it creates an illusion. And if you think about it for 2 more seconds, it's like, wait a minute. Wait, what are we doing here? And it's where this show is struggling. Like, at some level, I sort of respect. We'll see where it all ends up. It's like, okay, clearly you didn't want to do Euphoria season 3 in the traditional sense of like, let's pick up with these characters.
Right.
We'll pretend they're all still younger and like we'll deal with them in college. Like that's where like a lot of versions of Euphoria season 3 end up. Allows you to essentially do high school storylines. They're just in college now. We're not doing that here. So I guess this is just the show pulling off the Band-Aid and be like, we're just gonna, you know, we got Coleman Domingo for a brief like minute and a half, and we're gonna do this little bit, and now we're never gonna talk about Rue and her drug use again, which is sort of, that's my assumption, is that this is the show communicating we're done with that plot line. She's cool, or at least cool as she's ever going to be. We have our interests elsewhere, and that's just not going to be a central part of Rue's struggle through the rest of the show. Now, maybe that's wrong, but that was my takeaway. It was like, we are closing the book on Rue as a drug addict.
Yes. She's got it under control now, basically, is kind of what it is.
I mean, I do think she took a woman to be killed to that, like that facility. I don't think that was a rehab facility, David. I'm not sure we're going to see that woman again.
I don't know about that. But it's a fair point. It's kind of like the show is just, we're like, the show doesn't want to deal with that anymore. And on some level, I respect it, Yeah. But I don't know. This is such a weird season of television to begin with, like many years after the last season. So it's kind of like, all right, this is not a convention. You can't evaluate it by conventional metrics, All right. And then finally, there's a scene with Rue and Jules meeting in New York, reconnecting after a long time away. I have to say, kind of a cool scene because it's just, I think it does a good job of capturing that feeling where someone from one context, aka high school or a job or whatever, and then you meet them at a much different phase of their life, and they're very different, and the trappings around them are different. And there's a kind of like excitement there of you're kind of discovering a person in a new way. And obviously, I think these two characters have really good chemistry with each other. So I thought this is kind of cool, and I'm curious to see where it's going. I think one of the biggest weaknesses of season 2 is how it handled the Rue-Jules relationship. I think it really didn't do honor to that relationship, in my opinion. I think it had a very abridged version of that relationship and focused on other characters like Elliot. Like, who gives a shit, about Elliot? I care about Rue and Jules. But yeah, anyway, Patrick, any thoughts on the Rue-Jules reunion?
I'm glad she's back in the story. There's a little bit of like, to what end? You know what I mean? Like, it's still 2 episodes in. I have no idea how any of these plots overlap with one another, or are these going to be essentially Rue's journey with Alamo Brown is that's the plot A, and all of this are just sort of detours that like allow you to revisit these cast of characters and be like, how long is she going to spend with Jules? Is there any world where you imagine Jules leaving that current situation to go get caught up? And you know what I mean? Like in Euphoria season 1 and 2 is like, they're going to high school house parties. Like there were reasons for people to like be around and hang out other than, presuming we get like a wedding. So that's the part where I'm just,
Jules' sugar daddy is Angel the stripper who's in the rehab, and that's why she needs to go out there.
Fuck it, whatever. Like that's fine. Like why not? And I'm also, we'll see what the show does with it. Like I'm not sure how great I feel about like this is where Jules' character ended up. I understand that can feel like a natural extension of some of what she was up to personally essentially she professionalizes some of the what she was doing in Euphoria season 1 and 2, but I don't know, like Jules ends up a sex worker. Like, I don't know, is that the most interesting place to put Hunter Schafer and that character? Maybe. I doubt it. But also increasingly it's like we're just shoving all the women in this show into various degrees of sex work. Like Sam, like there are other options. I'm not saying that in a denigrating manner to women engage in sex work. I think that's great. Like OnlyFans making that safe and profitable. That's a net benefit to society. But like, you're pulling out a deck of cards, and every deck of card involves them working in sex work. And
every card shows them working in sex work. I mean, could the show be trying to say something about how American society is built on sex work? Maybe. We'll see.
Maybe.
We'll see.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. Yeah, sure.
The American economy is various aspects of the American economy that seem innocuous to you are actually just sex work in disguise. I doubt it. Doesn't really make much sense to me, but maybe that's the point he's trying to make. Who knows? I will say this. Look, I don't trust the show to handle COVID in a particularly interesting way, but I'm actually glad that it acknowledged it, because so many shows we watch don't even acknowledge that COVID happened and that COVID might have impacted the course of people's lives, right? And that COVID, in many ways made sex work through OnlyFans more appealing because you don't need to leave your house, you don't need to go outside, you can just
It
do it from
changed
your house.
culture.
Yeah.
Like it changed society in ways that are more nuanced than just like people were mad about vaccines or school closures. Like I think things like whether Euphoria does anything beyond just that brief acknowledgement, but like between Eddington, Euphoria, we have lots of flawed swings at like trying to interrogate COVID.
But at least they're trying.
But I'm
right?
glad
I'm
glad there are pieces of work that are trying to think about beyond just the RFK Jr. of it all. Like, what did COVID do? And it was more than just people got sick. It will be looked back upon 20 years from now as like one of the most foundational shifts in culture and politics. And Euphoria at least acknowledges that, hey, like people made a bunch of personal choices that were shifted as a direct result of being at home. And this is one small acknowledgement of that. So I'm with you of appreciating that.
I was dreading when they brought up COVID. I was like, oh my God, like what is this show going to, like this show's going to have some take on it that's going to be reprehensible. But no, it was so far, it is completely very reasonable. So
having the what's the soap actor? I forget the character's name is it Dylan something? You know who I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, Dylan Reed. I think
Dylan Reed, who Maddie is working with. Like, I will say, like, small good observation is like in that sequence where he's mad about not being able to work because everything's shut down in COVID, and he's the only one who's like taken his mask off a little bit so he can just like scream louder, like while his agent is wearing, like while everyone else in the background is like wearing masks. It was just that's good shit. That's good shit.
That's
like,
good, man.
Those are good subtle observations about that tell you something about a person's personality.
Yep. You can't. This is the thing. Like everyone says the show is really bad this season, like a lot of negative reviews, but like, the show does do a few things pretty well. And so we'll continue discussing it right here on Decoding TV. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcast, Decoding TV, also on YouTube. A lot of people watch us on YouTube and do not subscribe, but you should, because that's how you can get more of our conversations about what's happening in the world of television. Hey everyone, David Chen here. Thank you so much for watching that video from Decoding TV. If you want to get an audio version of the show, all you got to do is go to podcast.decodingtv.com. And if you want to support what we do, get ad-free episodes of the podcast and also bonus episodes of the podcast, go to decodingtv.com and become a paid member. Of course, you can also like and subscribe for more. We appreciate it. Thanks. See you later.